Welcome to Club IDIC. Today, we will be watching Conundrum from Star Trek: The Next Generation and discussing learning to remember. Please enjoy this meeting. Hello. How are you?
Hanging in there best I can.
Well, we're watching your episode today. It was your idea to watch Conundrum, I believe.
Maybe. I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. Yep, it was your idea.
I do enjoy it. I like. So I was on one of the other Star Trek pages, fan club pages, and someone said that the original series and the Next Generation were not good, and that the only good ones, of course, were the new ones.
That's a lie.
And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get jumped. They can be quite mean.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I myself was born in the Next Generation era. I'm only a few months younger than the Next Generation because I was born in 1987. And my mom recalls us watching the Next Generation on television when I was a little kid, when my brother was a little kid. So
the Next Generation was my first real Trek. The original series would come on the old time station occasionally, like an episode here or there. But the first one that I watched that was regular TV was the Next Generation.
Yes.
And I loved it. I'm getting so sick and tired of all the shut up Wesley posts too.
Yeah. And my mother's favorite Star Trek actor is Michael Dorn. So
I love him. Okay, so this is kind of funny, at least to me, maybe not to anybody else. So we didn't watch much TV as kids. We watched the educational stuff like Slim Goodbody and stuff, but we didn't watch a whole lot of TV. There's the old stuff, Ben Matlock, Andy Griffith that came on Sunday afternoons and stuff, but we didn't watch a whole lot of TV. We went outside and played. So there was a movie. It was coming on TV. We were just about to turn it off. You know, when you had to stand up and walk all the way to the TV to turn it off. So before we got over there, before I could turn off the TV, it said Michael Dorn as one of the actors in the movie. So I was like, I just want to watch a few minutes. I want to see. I did not know what he looked like as a human being. I was shocked because he's very different as a human. But yeah, I was like, that's not him. That must be a different guy. That's not him. But it was.
Yeah.
He was like driving a semi or something. I don't remember because we didn't watch the movie. But yeah, to me, and well, what I ended up saying was, because somebody else made a comment, I wanted to show support to them, but I didn't want to just come out and say anything about the new one. So I avoided any talking about the new shows. What I said was, without the original series, we wouldn't have anything newer than that, because they were the groundbreakers. I said the original series did far more than just entertain us for the length of the episode. It caused young people to get these ideas about advancement and future and technology and become scientists and doctors. And now we have cell phones that are more powerful than the computer.
Yeah.
They took us to space, but we wouldn't have these things if something didn't spark that dream. And I said, Star Trek has always been about a dream. It was originally the dream of a little boy that used to sit in a cardboard box and watch the stars. And now look where we are.
And we wouldn't have Strange New Worlds without TOS.
Exactly. I'm really liking it a lot. There are moments though where I'm on the edge of the seat. I mean, I'm like nail biting everything. But I do like the nods to TOS. I do like the stuff like, you know, Pike wearing the green tunic instead of the regular officers. So, I mean, there's little things all throughout. And I like it a lot. So,
Yeah.
the people who don't like it don't have to watch it.
Well, I've learned recently that I can't keep up with the traditionalists in terms of being a Trekkie. I can't keep up with the fan clubs. I can't keep up with those who have a standard about how to
I
be a
think it's
Trekkie. I just have to be a Trekkie the way I want to be a Trekkie, and I can't keep up with those who have expectations about what it means to be a Trekkie. I have to keep myself and this club at a different standard because I can't meet the common expectations of what it is to be a Trekkie. It's not going to happen in this lifetime.
Well, I mean, think about it. Trekkie was formed by people who were trying to make fun of the people who watch Star Trek. I mean, seriously, that's what it was. It was the kids that were making fun. And we've kind of adopted that, but it's not so easy to define. And I think the people who go onto the sites and they're like, well, you are the one that's not in the true spirit of Star Trek, but they don't like TOS, TNG, or Deep Space Nine. All they like is the newer stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that's right.
And it's like, all these Trek fan clubs are just literally so hard on people who don't grasp Trek or who interpret things in a different way or who just don't agree with typical interpretations and just are slower to embrace modern Trek versus older Trek, and it's just too much.
But when I said it was a simple statement. I didn't think it was a big deal. I wasn't trying to be negative in any way. The conversation changed from the Next Generation into Picard. I mean, that's fine. It's a natural movement of the conversation to move into what he's doing now. I said, I did not get very far into the first episode and I don't watch it. And the number of people who jumped on my comment to say horrible things about how I'm not in the spirit of Star Trek and I don't understand what it's really all about really kind of hurt my feelings, because I'm like, dude, before you were born, I was watching Star Trek. So, I was like, this spirit was, if you read Gene Roddenberry's biography, it is very clear in there what his vision was. Man, I think Strange New Worlds would be, he'd be loving it. He did not have the visual effects and all of the technology that we know of and have today. But man, I remember that the studio was always riding his back about, you can't make an alien look too alien, or you can't do this and you can't do that. And a lot of his ideas were smashed by the studios.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if he had what we have now back then, this would be what Star Trek looked like. But we had to have that to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Because and that's what I was somebody, I have no idea who they were, but I was like, you don't understand, that was futuristic technology to us. we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have all of these other things. The idea of walking over to the replicator and getting food, this was not, um, this was unheard of. All of the things that were in there created the advancements that we take advantage of. And they want, there's a big group of people that wants to go back and redo the original series with the more modern technology. But I don't think that's necessary.
I think that we just need to remember that some things are better left alone.
I think so too. I mean, it would be like going back to the pioneer days and giving the people that crossed America to go to like California or whatever cars.
Hmm.
You know, you can't just go back and change history because you wish it was.
No, you can't change history. You can't erase history. It's disrespectful to those who endured it. I mean, fill in the holes between that which is already canon, or create alternate universes. That's fine. But don't erase history just because you don't like it. History is history. Just learn from it.
That's how I feel. You know, my grandpa was a circuit riding pastor. And he, in the beginning, rode a horse from town to town. I mean, that was their transportation. But to me, that's so vital to remember that it wasn't that long ago that we didn't even have cars. I mean, if you think about it, he did eventually get a car, but that was not something that almost every family has a car now. But that was, I mean, back then, almost every family had a horse.
Yeah.
History changes, and it changes us. But if we look back and we are like, hey, man, my grandpa went through these things, you know? I don't know. Talking to
Yeah.
them is rough.
I mean, history and the experience in history can change us, but if we learn to remember those experiences, we can always take the lessons that those in history learned. We can use them for our day as well, right?
Absolutely. And you know, the title of this show
Learning
is,
to,
as you said, you know, but I mean, it definitely well suits, but the confusion, the difficulty of a situation or question, I think we find ourselves in a situation constantly where it's confusing, and we have to figure out
exactly.
and use clues around us. Like, well, we're all on the bridge of this starship, so it's probably our ship, you know.
Or we're all in a situation we're suddenly confused and uncomfortable with. I mean, if life were always comfortable, would it be actually worth living? Probably not. Life is not meant to be comfortable. Life is meant to be about growth and change and progress. And none of that is comfortable.
No, change usually is not.
It's scary, and it can weigh a lot on the emotions, but it will help us to become better, stronger people, right? And we may make mistakes along the way, as we see in the episode. Oh, this crew made a lot of mistakes. A lot of funny things happened when they were learning to remember who they were.
I don't remember all of it.
Well,
So
that's okay.
we're about to watch it, so that'll fix it.
Yes, we are about to watch it.
I do remember Worf with the whole thing that I have decorations as well. I remember. I thought that was funny.
Yes, we are about to watch it. And you know what? I'm not even going to wait for people to show up today because I've got something later and I don't want to drag it out.
Alrighty then.
So I think we should get to it. I hope you're not offended. I just do have something
Not
later
at all.
today.
I might send my cousin a text and just tell him, go ahead and watch it so we can.
Yeah,
he
is
wants
your
to
cousin
join us.
coming?
I don't know. I haven't talked to him in
Yeah.
a couple of days, so I don't know.
I'm not gonna wait.
That's fine.
I explained my schedule for the day. So
Yeah, I tagged him in it. And he didn't respond, so I don't know.
yeah.
He might have decided to go visit his mom. It's like a 2.5 hour drive to go visit her, so he might have done that.
And if people show up while we're watching, I'll just tell them what we're doing.
Sounds good.
Because if you haven't seen it, do you want to talk about anything else before we get to?
I've seen it several times. I just haven't seen it in a while.
So let's have a
I've
refresher.
been watching Star Trek Enterprise.
Let's have a refresher course then, and then we can have something to talk about.
Sounds good.
All right, see you in a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how'd you enjoy it?
As soon as they blew up the ship, I remembered the rest of the episode. So,
yeah, isn't that like a metaphor for life, though? This whole episode, like, we're going along in life, calm and tranquil, and we think everything's good. Then all of a sudden, we're faced with some sort of crisis or some sort of difficult person or difficult situation that we don't know how to handle. Word of loss. We're thinking, what is this? Who are we that we have to deal with this? How are we going to handle this?
right.
And we don't know what to do. We have to explore it. We have to look inside ourselves and we have to think, how are we going to handle this? We don't know what to do. We have to look through our previous life experiences. We have to look within ourselves. We have to struggle to find the tools that we need to deal with what we've got in front of us, because we really have no clue who we are and how we're going to be able to handle what we've got, because we don't know anything about what we're facing.
Well, I mean, the entire crew was using all of these things that we don't think about, but we use on a regular basis. Context clues. We're on the bridge, therefore it must be our ship. You have more pips on your collar than I do, therefore you're probably higher ranking.
Right. They were using their past experiences, what they had around them, what was familiar to them. But, they were also still scared and uncertain, and their past experiences helped them a little bit, but they were still uncertain. It didn't mean they were immune to the fear that came with the uncertain situation.
I think Picard in this instance, he knew within him that there was something morally wrong in the plan. He wasn't sure what it was. But I think that he was really suspecting that there was something with that one individual who's constantly, no, we have to attack, we have to destroy it now, we have to do it now, don't wait, don't do, now. I think he was realizing, hey, doubting there's something not quite right. And I think that's like the strongest thing, is that moral compass that he always had and always showed. He was quite the diplomat, but he always maintained that no matter what else was going on. Even when he couldn't remember who he was, Picard had that compass and it was telling him something was not right about the situation.
That's true. Even in a difficult situation when we've lost our head, I guess it's possible that having a sense of morality allows us to have a sense of resiliency. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, there's that part of us. I mean, I believe that everybody has had these situations in their life come up where they're doubting what they know. They may not lose their memory, but they're doubting what they know. And I think that having a strong compass will help you ultimately make the right decision. Because, I know personally I've been through it and know a lot of other people who have. You're in a situation, it's so scary or unnerving because you don't really know everything that's going on. And you are doubting, doubting what you think you know and what do you really know? Is this really right? Is it. So yeah, I think that becomes more and more difficult in
Especially
our
when there's
changing
someone
society.
screaming at you like, oh, you know nothing about the situation. You need to trust me, even though you don't really know me, even though you don't have a proper sense of what's going on. You need to trust me and forget about everything else you might know.
One of my dad's sisters, who I will not name, but she has frequently said that I did not know my dad as well as she did. But the truth is, I lived with him my whole life. I knew him a lot better than she did, but she will try to make me question whether I or not I know what he would do in a certain situation. I'm like, she lived with him for a short time. And then I lived with him for a lot longer than that. After that, people can change. So
Yes, they
even if
can.
I mean, and I try to remember that in other situations, somebody who was really mean or horrible or bad or stuff, that they can change. And I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt on that. And I say try because sometimes I fail at that, but I do feel like we should give people the benefit of the doubt. And, in not knowing each other and not knowing what they thought about each other, they were trying to give each other the benefit of the doubt, as in maybe we were close, maybe we weren't, but maybe we were, give each other. I think the whole thing between Lauren and Riker is, and the look on his face at the end when he goes and sits with the ladies at the table, it's like he knows he's in trouble. And he's trying to think how he can charm his way out because that's always worked for him in the past.
Well, he slept with an ensign, first of all, when he had amnesia, because we know they slept together, and that he enjoyed it when he had amnesia, and he's thinking, oh my goodness. And even though he was in love with Troy, and it's like he knows he's in deep crap with both of them.
Yeah. I love the look on his face though. I mean, honestly, the actors, I mean, it's so realistic. It just really is because he had the, oh shit, how fast can I run? Look
Like
on
he
his
is
face.
just lucky that there were no consequences to that encounter, like long-term consequences. Can you imagine if they did an episode later, like, oh, Ro got pregnant from Riker's little one night stand with?
Oh wow, that would have, yeah, that would have been something, wouldn't it?
It would have been. It would have made for an interesting storyline given Ro's eventual fate on the next generation. What would have
Very
happened to the
true.
child?
Very true. I don't know.
And that's what I was thinking as I was watching this episode. Oh, they're lucky there were no consequences.
That we know of, but yeah. That's,
Well, that's very true.
I mean, considering the unique relationship between Riker and Troy. I wonder if she ever brought that up,
Well, I mean, it took long enough for them to actually get married, even though they
Yeah.
could have gotten married a lot sooner, and they didn't. It's
But
not
if you have you read the book, I cannot pronounce the word, Emizati.
No.
I haven't read it in years, but I remember enough that I was very taken by how their relationship was in the beginning. And then they allowed it to become this almost passive aggressive thing with each other because, it was definitely not what it was in the beginning. When Riker spent the time that he did on Beta Z, um, they were really close. I mean, he learned how to read her thoughts, and then it's like that went away, like that closeness just went away.
I don't understand why. I mean, they were encouraging families on starships, so they could have gotten married and they didn't because he was ambitious for a career. And maybe he felt, this is what I feel, maybe he felt a wife and family would have gotten in the way.
And that's always possible. A lot of people talk about Riker and him turning down his own ship several times. But I think in Riker's mind, one, he was extremely close to the captain, and two, there's a bit of prestige, being second in command on the flagship of the entire Federation. I mean, but as far as like the family and relationships on the starship, the whole thing between Captain Picard and Dr. Crusher, I mean, they obviously were very close. They obviously had feelings for each other. But neither one of them, a couple of times, there's times when Beverly really kind of hinted or leaned that way, but neither one of them made a move.
Much too professional to want anything outside those boundaries, I guess.
I think so for Picard, but I don't know about Crusher. I don't know. I think she mourned more than she showed as far as Jack, because
Yeah.
just watching her in relationships, she always, she'd get to a point and then she'd like put the brakes on. And then the older Wesley got, and the more he reminded her of Jack, I think that probably made it more difficult for her to move on.
Well, I don't know.
But one thing about this episode that I have wondered for so many years, where was Guinan?
I don't know. Guinan literally comes and goes, probably.
But she was always the one. I mean, I feel like this wouldn't have affected her the same way. I feel like she would have been that voice telling Picard to go cautiously, and, like she has in other episodes where we had mind probes and temporal disturbances and all kinds of weird stuff. So it just seemed weird to me that Guinan was not around for that.
Well, the memory thing affected Data as well, so maybe it would have affected Guinan, and it affected
No,
Troy.
because Data has the computer components that linked him to the computers. So when the computer was affected, I think that probably affected him that way.
Possibly.
But it was so funny, when he got down to the computer and he was just flying those fingers, just um, it's like it was coming back, Man, he was moving.
I just think how funny it is. Like as soon as the scan happened, everybody was you couldn't tell right away until they opened their mouths. You couldn't tell that they were, you could just maybe assume they were confused by the scan, and then all of a sudden when they open their mouth, who are you? Who are we?
Who am I? I don't know. Yeah.
And then they're suddenly looking around to see who's in charge and what they're doing. And of course, Worf suddenly, oh, I'm in charge. I'm decorated the most. Da 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 da. And then, yeah, I mean, they didn't really notice that Macduff guy was a new arrival. How did they not notice for so long?
Because they didn't know who everybody was, and his name was on the list of senior crew.
That's true, yeah.
But he definitely showed signs. There were definitely red flags. I mean, he did not behave like the others.
No, he
So
didn't.
to me, those would have been red flags. And I think that's part of why Picard started to doubt. He had both his moral compass and he had this feeling of not right with this person. Like everybody else seemed like, war and that it's uncomfortable. War is uncomfortable. We're not comfortable with this. He was all, let's go kill them all. Let's go kill them all. So I think there was definitely red flags.
Yeah. And it's like he was Macduff was very aggressive throughout the whole process and manipulative.
He was. And the sly little smile when the first thing Crusher tried did not work. And that little smile he gave, because he knew exactly what he was doing. He threw the test so that they would think that something terrible would happen to anybody else who did it, so she would not continue to try. But I think he miscalculated her persistence in trying, because she didn't give up. She kept going. She kept manipulating it and trying to do something that would cause a different outcome. So I think he did not realize the human ability to be resilient, the human stubbornness in the face of whatever's going on. And I think we see that in all of the treks. But I think we see it a lot more in Enterprise, where Archer is staunch. Like he is, you know what? The Vulcans held us back. These people held us back. We're going to stubbornly go and try. We might fail, but we're going to try. And I think that attitude can be seen throughout all of the series, where, you know what, things look bad right now, but we're not going to give up.
Well, this also blaming the aliens, the humans blaming the aliens for holding them back from progress is also probably why by the time of discovery, so many species have left the Federation. Because the aliens were tired of getting blamed and they lost trust in the Federation. They lost trust in Starfleet. So they're like, okay, we don't need the Federation anymore. We're tired of being blamed. We're tired of being seen as the reason the humans can't get their crap together. I don't know if you've seen Discovery, but when you see the Federation,
the little bit that my son and I tried to watch in the beginning, we were not impressed. So
Like you'll see it, I think is it season 3 when they go back, when they go forward in time? When you see the Federation flag, you'll see a diminishment.
Hmm. Yeah, we just haven't,
Yeah.
but man, Deep Space Nine is really my like favorite of everything. So
Well,
I have shows memorized and stuff. But to me, I mean, I do like the starship and the going to a new strange
yeah.
world every episode. I do like that a lot.
To each their own.
But
But this whole humans blaming the aliens thing, it's why the Federation leaves itself open to failure and crumbling and destabilization, because that's not what the Federation is about. The
it's
Federation
not,
is
but I
just,
really don't see that in anything except Enterprise. In the very beginning, when Archer is so resentful towards the Vulcans. And then I just finished season 1 and started into season 2. And the episode where Archer comes to T'Pol and he says, I'm beginning to understand why the Vulcans withheld certain information. Because they were asked to join a war and wipe out this people with their modern technology that they did not have. And it made him start to realize that the Vulcans saw the humans the way he was seeing the people who were fighting each other. They're not ready. They're not there yet. And it gave him a new appreciation for the Vulcans. Of course, T'Pol did that over the entire time, but he really, for the first, I think that was the first time he even thought it, and then he admitted it that, well, maybe they had a reason for withholding stuff because humans had just come out of World War III. They were still in the mindset of war, even
well,
though it
that's
had just
true.
ended.
That's true. But the human arrogance is what, and the inability of humans to protect themselves and make sure that they're being safe in space is what gets them into trouble. Hence this episode, because Picard hesitated in raising shields, and that's something he should have done right away. And seeing something that they didn't understand, and he's like, "Oh, let's take a diplomatic approach."
I think that throughout the series, there were several times I thought Picard was trying too hard on the diplomatic side. But that's why he had Riker, to, hey, I don't, maybe we should take a little more precaution.
Like
And
this whole situation happened because they weren't careful enough when they saw the situation in the first place, and
it
then they
was an
ended up
unknown
losing their
situation.
memories and found themselves at the mercy of Macduff and the alien that was disguised as Macduff. And then Picard was left with a nagging feeling. Sans his memories, he was left with a nagging feeling that this whole situation was wrong. And Picard's crew was left without their memories and having to rediscover who they were. And they were trying to get out of having to enter a war that they felt was wrong, but they couldn't explain why. And
And,
very,
I think in that case, I hear a lot of hate on Voyager, but Janeway was always cautious on coming up to an alien species that they did not know. The first thing she always did was, let's raise the shields. We'll try to communicate with them, but let's protect ourselves. And I think Picard was almost the opposite in the let's be friends first and then raise shields if we have to.
like Picard was entirely at fault for how the situation, because I mean, they should have raised shields. They should have backed away. They shouldn't have tried to make friends. And they ended up in a very dangerous conundrum that could have been permanent. They ended up actually killing part of an innocent race just because of Picard's carelessness in approaching a situation he didn't fully understand. And I will take that, Mark, and people can really come after me for this position. I don't care. His carelessness led to this situation unfolding the way it did. And they ended up going to the starbase, and Macduff really lost his head. He said, destroy them. And that's when they discovered, oh, this starbase is defenseless, and there's thousands of people who are going to die if we proceed. And then they realized, oh, this is wrong. We shouldn't do this. And then they found out Macduff's deception.
Yeah.
But then what bothers me, like, they only had a small conversation that we can see about how terrible the situation was.
I know. I feel like some aspect of consequences should have shown. He expressed his deepest sympathy, but
Oh, sympathy. You killed many of an innocent race. You allowed yourself to be manipulated because you didn't follow proper protocols. And
well, of course, because they knew that other ship could have hit them with everything they had, and it would not have affected the Enterprise. At least not much.
right.
It would not have gotten through the shields. And they knew that because they said that. They knew what the complement of weapons was, and they listened and allowed themselves to be manipulated by, but the battleships are coming. Now they have long range scanners. They did not, Captain Picard did not say, let's use long range scanners and see if there's anything coming.
He just said, oh, let's approach this with diplomacy. Let's try and make friends. Never mind, it's something we don't know anything about. This is a stranger, and we should try and make friends with the stranger and not protect ourselves, even if this stranger could mean great harm. And they ended up manipulated it under a Sataran's control, and they ended up almost killing a whole race and ending a war against an innocent race that should have never even been there, like a war that should have never even been there. And Satarans had a skill with memory suppression and I don't know, they probably did research on the Enterprise and on Picard, and they took advantage of probably the famousness that Picard had, the reputation that he had with diplomacy, and they probably knew that they could manipulate him that way.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Because he even said, our captain is a great diplomat, but because he made sure that he stressed if we don't act quickly enough immediately, then we could die too. He pushed that thought into people's heads, meeting with them one-on-one, doing it one-on-one, like this, we're in this together, trying to form some sort of a bond with them so they would trust him, and trying to put doubt against Captain Picard in their heads.
Like, Picard seems to have this pattern that he leaves himself vulnerable to other races. Like the Borg knew about his reputation for diplomacy, and so did the Satarans. And they took advantage of that, and they took advantage of him, and they caused him to do some very despicable things because he left himself vulnerable.
Yeah, the whole Borg thing, man. And I just talked about this yesterday with somebody else. They were talking about the conflict between Picard and Cisco, and whether or not that was necessary to give Deep Space Nine like a different character. But I was very disappointed in Picard's actions in Emissary. I have seen so many episodes where Mr. Diplomat wants to apologize, say he's sorry for things that he had no control over, just to try to make a situation feel more comfortable. But he couldn't manage to do that for Cisco.
Like a simple sorry doesn't solve everything when you cause hurt or when you're put in a situation and prompted to cause hurt. It's like, and you're right, Picard never apologized to Cisco, and I'm sure it would have done a world of good. I mean, Picard and Locutus are not the same, but Cisco saw it that way, and I'm sure he wanted Picard to understand how he saw things.
I think personally that a simple sorry for your loss, I mean, he didn't have to take any personal accountability in saying sorry for your loss. I think it would have really greatly helped Cisco having respect for Picard. And I think it goes against the nature that we saw all through the Next Generation. Picard was the diplomat. Picard went out of his way to bend over backwards, even when the other side was being unreasonable. Picard always went out of his way to be that diplomat. Even, the Cardassians, and he always tried to remain the diplomat. And yet, this one time when he really needed to be, he didn't. So I felt like it was out of character. I think I disliked it more because I felt like it was out of his true character that we learned over the whole Next Generation.
And he literally, like with the Cisco thing, he literally used, I was, affected by a traumatic situation as an excuse not to be diplomatic. Like, everybody goes through trauma. Everybody goes through hard times. Everybody suffers, but you can always rise above
But I
it
feel
a
like
little bit to have your
at
moments.
no other point did he use excuses. He did not excuse behavior before. So for him to do it at that point just really seemed out of character. And maybe it's just me, but I just felt like it was out of character for him because that's not the Picard that we knew. So
Quite sad. And Picard may be a good diplomat, but he's also careless in some of the decisions that we make. And we see that carelessness. We also see the carelessness again. He assumes that everything will be all right just because he's there and he's like going to be a diplomat. He assumes that diplomacy will resolve an uncertain situation. He assumes that he doesn't have to take any precautions.
but that compared to Kirk and even Archer and Pike, the number of times they were called reckless because they charged into a situation and made a decision right away. I think it was a really great progression for Star Trek to go from Space Cowboy Kirk to Mr. Diplomat Picard, showing there's this wide variety. Not all captains are the same. Not all of the Federation's the same. Not all of Starfleet's the same. So, I know that in the beginning, the Next Generation was not accepted by everybody. So, and then we have had that happen with each and every series. It wasn't immediately embraced by the Star Trek community and the fans. And a lot of times they changed their mind and became huge fans of the newer shows. So
It's true. But things that are not easily understood are not often readily accepted. things and people that are not easily understood, they have to take their time, and they have to find their place, because it takes people a while to understand and learn to accept them.
Oh, I think a lot of it has to do with what you said earlier. Change is difficult.
Yes,
And
but it's
meeting
inevitable.
someone who is not like you is a change.
That is a change, but you know what? People are different. You're never going to meet someone who is exactly the same as you. Not even twins are the same.
This is so true. But I think a lot of times we build our little cliques that are, oh, well, you agree with me, so I want to be friends with you. You don't agree with us, so therefore we're going to shun you. You look like
Yes,
me, so I want to try to be a friend with you. But no, you're too different from me. I think we do that. I think we do that without thinking of it. I try to actively think against those things, but it is a comfort thing that I'm going to seek out people who think like me, who talk like me, dress like me, act like me, look like the same things as I do. I think that that's a human characteristic, to try to seek out other people who are like us. So I think that's one of the problems with some of the new Star Trek groups. They started the group and they're seeking out people who agree with them and who think like them. And if you come in and you don't agree with everything they say, then they want to ban you. They want to criticize you. They want to make you feel so bad that you leave because they don't want to face a different opinion than theirs. So, okay, well, these ladies, they don't think, their opinion doesn't match ours. We're going to say things to make them feel stupid or to make them feel less, so that they leave, so that we can continue
that's true.
building each other up with our, we all think the same thing. If you look, some of those posts, they're all the exact same. And
That's
they
true.
just post because they want to hear the yes, 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 I agree with you, I agree with you, I agree with you. And then all of a sudden somebody says, well, I think that doesn't, that doesn't show the characteristics that we've already learned from the past, or that doesn't line up with my ideas, or that doesn't match my opinion. And then they get angry because they don't want that new opinion in there. They just want their opinion.
You know, people need to learn to understand each other better and stop focusing on those who struggle to meet up to expectations, because not everybody is going to meet up to common expectations, because everybody's pace is different. Everybody's pace is always going to be different, and we need to spend time learning to accept different and learning to love each other just a little more, and focusing on the good that people do instead of focusing on how people are different and how they function differently. And we all are all the same in that we love Trek. We may love it differently. We may
Right.
care about it differently. We may get through it differently. We may watch it differently. We may watch some Trek more than others, and that's okay. But we still watch it. We still love it. We watch it at our own pace. We enjoy it at our own pace. And we don't need to be criticizing each other because we can't live up to the common expectations that the Trek fandom may have of fans. We just need to be happy that we're fans, because fandom
I
is about
think,
diversity and IDIC.
for me personally, with the next generation, I was homeschooled in a small town with a lot of my relatives literally living walking distance from our house. So we did have a lot of like-minded, like opinions, because we were, a family that we did the same things and everything. But the next generation was a big deal for me, because instead of focusing on different races within humanity, it was the human race. It wasn't black, brown, white, whatever. It was um it was humanity as a race. And I think that changed my thinking a lot because I did grow up in a small neighborhood. And we didn't, I mean, there were a lot of black kids. We didn't see a difference between us and them. But I think when we got outside of our little neighborhood and our little comfort zone where everybody was on good terms, I was very shocked to see the level of people dividing by skin color and economic status and jobs. Um, Even in our homeschool group, there was, well, my dad does this and my dad does that. And, there was a, a starting of that kind of division. Well, we're not going to be friends with that person because their dad works on cars. Like,
Difference
like
is
it's
such
a,
an ugly thing, and we really shouldn't think of it as an us and them anymore. And that's such a divisive thing. Like, we should all think of that we're people and that we're all part of the wonderful spectrum that is diversity. We all have a part on that spectrum. We're all part of it. We've all got a role to play in diversity, and we all should remember that we all have history in that spectrum of diversity, and we should value each other's history and learn about each other's history, and always learn to remember that
yeah.
history for
I mean,
ourselves and
but
for each other and for the future generations that come.
I think for me, the biggest draw for Star Trek was the diversity, was the whole aspect of that. Um, Not so much the technology, although we've grown into that, but in the beginning for me, it was that diversity and that togetherness as the human race. But as the human race, we're also going to accept the alien races. And
Mhm.
we're going to try to be friends with them. And we're going to try to stay on terms where we're not fighting and we're not going to war. So that for me was a big deal
Yeah.
that you don't really think about in the beginning, as this is changing the way I think about things.
We should try to be friends and with everyone and learn to accept everyone and try to be patient with everybody and understanding and look past what we don't understand, because we never know what battle is somebody is going through, and we never know who could use a friend
Very true.
to help save it. And we never know what our kindness might do. Our kindness might help save a life.
I had a story in one of my devotionals many, many years ago about a young man who was valedictorian of his graduating class. And when he stood up to give his speech, he pointed at his best friend and said that he was the only reason why he was there that day. And he told the story that he had been being bullied at school. And he packed up his entire locker and took everything home because he had planned on killing himself that weekend, and he did not want his mother to have to go through his locker and his personal belongings. Some bullies jumped out, made him drop everything, and of course, with all of the books and everything, they just scattered. You need anything, huh? Yeah. Can I get a bite? So anyway, this other kid crosses the street, helps him pick up his stuff, and walks him home, helps him carry this massive amount of stuff. He's like, man, do you really need all this stuff this weekend? And they got to talking, found out they had some things in common on the walk to his house. And they ended up hanging out that weekend. And then they ended up hanging out all the time at school, out of school. They became best friends. And that one thing, that one, let me go out of my way, across the street, help this kid pick up his books. Let me help him carry them home, because this is a lot to carry for one person. Let me carry it home. And then that conversation and continued conversations, it started with one little thing. And I have remembered that for many years, that sometimes one reaching out, one little word. I've heard so many stories over my life about how somebody was about to take their life, or somebody was about to do something irreversible, and someone stopped them and said, "I like your dress," or "You have a pretty smile," or one small compliment. And um it changed their mind. And it just blows my mind that one simple little thing like that could have absolutely eternal benefits. We don't think about that one person's life um can have an effect. We think about time travel and going back in time and how that is going to affect the future. But right now, this minute is going to affect the future.
Right.
So what we do in this minute matters.
Yes. Like, is everything all right?
Oh, yeah. The nurse just brought my pills in, so I'm
Oh, well,
fixing my drink so I can take them.
we should probably wrap up then. But I will leave this piece of advice for you and for everybody else. Never be afraid to go outside your comfort zone, because you never know what you do in a small moment may matter to somebody or matter to your future. Never be afraid to care or to love. Never be afraid to let yourself grow. It may take a lot of faith to go outside your comfort zone to do these things, but change and growth and acting in faith to do good for yourself, for others, it's never a scary thing.
I think we see a lot of examples of that
Yes.
throughout all of the series of Trek. If you look, somebody making that first step, Miles and Julian pop in my head.
Yes.
But there's so
Julian,
many, if you look back, there's so many different things where somebody stepped a little bit outside of their comfort zone.
yes.
Very, very good advice.
Yes, never be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. And you never know, you might be something or someone that somebody needs. And you might bring some light to somebody that they desperately need. And that is part of what IDIC is all about. And that's great. It's always a great thing to be the light that somebody else needs. Never be afraid to strive for that.
But sometimes you aren't aware of that.
I know. You're never aware of what you can do until you actually do it.
But even after you do, sometimes you aren't aware of what that connection was. Like the young man who had no idea that he had made such a change in his friend's life. You never,
Yeah.
you may never know. I mean, you may get to see the benefits at a later point in your life, but you may never see what happened after you helped some lady open a door,
Yeah.
or so many simple little things. And I know so many times that we would be leaving the grocery store and my sons would rush over to somebody and help them unload their groceries and put the cart away. You never know what such a simple little thing could impact.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of a couple examples in Star Trek, like in the shuttle in the Storyteller. If Julian hadn't pretty much told Miles, you don't have to call me sir, you can always call me by my name, I prefer it. And if Garrick hadn't approached Julian that day, those friendships would have never come to pass. It required people going outside their comfort zones and saying, hey, I'm here, I exist. Can I be part of your world? Will you let me in?
Yeah, I mean, look at the change in Odo when he finally started letting people see him. And I think that really started with Loxana,
Yes.
but people did reach out to Odo and he shunned them and their attempts until he finally let somebody in. And then look how he integrated so much into the senior staff once he started allowing people to see the real him.
Yes, I think Odo came out of his comfort zone as soon as Loxana needed somebody to help her out of her situation. And then he realized, oh, if she cares for me, how many other people must care for me too?
But I think it was his protective nature
Yes.
that did that. You know, I think the founders could have been so different because they did have this need for the, I don't even know the right word. I want to say calm, but they wanted to have it controlled versus chaos.
Yeah.
And they would rather control with violence than have chaos.
Yes.
Not realizing that the violence was chaos, but I think things could have been so much different had other species not judged the founders to the point where they felt like they had to build this control. I think that Odo gave us a sense of what they would have been like had that not happened, because that was in his nature to be protective, to seek justice, and to keep things under control, really.
Yes. Are you getting tired?
I'm always tired. I'm in the hospital. You don't sleep in the hospital. It just does not happen, unfortunately.
Well, if you wanted to take a nap.
Oh, don't worry. They'll be back in here in an hour to take vitals. So that
well, I do have to go get ready for my thing later.
I know. So whatever it is, I hope you have fun.
Yes, thank you. And I'd just like to leave a parting message. We all need to focus on learning to remember that comfort zones are not there to keep us comfortable. Comfort zones are there to keep us from growing. This is something we all need to focus on learning to remember.
Ooh, that's good. I'm going to use that. I like that.
I'll even say it again. We all need to focus on learning to remember that comfort zones are not there to keep us comfortable. Comfort zones are there to keep us from growing.
Wow. That's deep.
That is deep.
I like that. All right. Well, I will see you next time.
Take care. Safe. Feel good.
You too.
Bye. Thank you all for attending this meeting. Live long and prosper.